Sicha from uh, 54 years ago today at the 10th annual Kinus of Nesheo B'nai Chabad. That's 1965, 14th of Iyar, Pesach Sheni. And as I mentioned on other Shiurim, Pesach Sheni has to do with also the concept similar to what the Chovos HaLevavos says about the idea of Bitochon, that he speaks about the Bitochon that a person needs to have, not just concerning physical things, but the assuredness that if he wants to do mitzvahs, if he wants to do the right thing, Hashem will help him do it. Just like a person has to have Bitochon, that he needs to have money to pay for his rent, or he needs to have food to eat, etc. Hashem will take care of it. The same thing when it comes to Torah mitzvahs, he needs to have Bitochon in that as well. And that's the Rebbe is going to derive this message in and from Pesach Sheni. So the Rebbe starts off, Aleph, is Council Shel B'nai Yisrael, the gathering of Jewish people, like Kol Davar from Misrachis B'Koyrim B'nai Yisrael, like everything that occurs with Jewish people, surely it's by divine providence. Yesh bo mashmoos, that has meaning and significance. Yesh bo limud, and there's a lesson. Maduan nifgashim b'makim zeh b'zman. The very time that they meet, in the very place that they meet, that itself has significance and a lesson. The Rebbe says, we are now presently in the second Pesach. About this day, there's an entire story in the Torah. From the time when this story occurred and on the Chol Shana B'Yud Al Iyar, and every year on the 14th of Iyar, Niskarim B'Mur, we recollect and we remember this event. The way it's related in Torah through Moshe Rabbeinu. HaTorah Yinitzchis, the Torah is everlasting. The Nitnam Nasle Kroisav Elohim Demedei Shana was given to us to be read and to be studied annually. B'chol Tkufesa, and all of its eras. U'b'chol Mokim Sheba Yehudi Nimtzvan, and every place that a Jew finds himself. As I'm moving from this understood, Sipur Zesh Nitten B'Torah, that this story that was given to us in the Torah, Meichel Hayrav V'Limud HaMaslim B'nai Yisrael, it contains in it a lesson and a teaching that's appropriate for Jewish people, Anoshim V'Noshim, men and women, that find themselves in this place, in this time. Moving Ma'atzmi, it's self-understood. Since the above mentioned story that's related in the Torah, it's surely so that it happened exactly as all the details are described in the Torah. On the other hand, Torah ain't a sefer ma'asis. The Torah is not a history book. When the Torah relates a story, it has significance and deep ideas for every Jew. Therefore, so the Rebbe says not an amazing thing, but it's a very powerful thing. The more we study Torah, we comprehend something in more in depth, and we derive more teachings and more lessons. Whether the lessons and teachings are concerning oneself, whether those teachings are in relation to another, and similarly, how to act not just with another, but in general with the entire area and place that one finds themselves in. So the Rebbe says in line 12, all this is included and is derived from a short story in the Torah. Seemingly, a short story in the Torah is very small. Since it's Hashem's Torah from Hashem, it's no wonder. A very short story that was only transmitted in a few psukim. Yachal lahachal asaris u'meyas v'alfei aroyas can contain in it tens and hundreds and thousands of lessons. A short story can have thousands of lessons. Ukechol shekvar lamdu v'yilmud mazeh, and as many lessons that one studied and derived and will study from it, there is still room for further lessons. There's still left what to learn and to keep on learning to the end of all generations. Sheni, such is true also concerning the story of the second Pesach. In addition to all the lessons from the story that was explained in the past, and also lately that the Rebbe spoke about, an appropriate, in-depth dive into the story, will reveal new directives. That those directives and lessons are appropriate and specific to our time and specific and appropriate for our place. These lessons can be found by thinking in well into the event as it occurred in its time. So the Rebbe says in Gimel, Ma Hevi Lis Pesach Sheni, what brought about the second Pesach, that the Yidden brought a second time of Carbon Pesach in the month of Iyar on the 14th of Iyar. Asher B'nai Yisrael Yotzim Mitzrayim, when the Jewish people left Mitzrayim. When they had to celebrate Pesach in the wilderness, and in other words, a year after they left, one of the conditions in the observance of the Carbon Pesach, that the offering of the Carbon Pesach, and therefore setting up the Seder, making the Seder with all the details, meaning all the details, including the Carbon Pesach, it can only be through a person who's not Tameh, a person who was ritually pure, that didn't come in contact with a dead body. Because at that time, a year after they went on Mitzrayim, Pesach Harishon B'Midbar, the first Pesach that they celebrated in the wilderness, was actually the only one they celebrated in the wilderness, because the first Pesach that they ever celebrated as a people, they were still in Mitzrayim. The next time they celebrated Pesach was almost 40 years later, when they crossed the Yarden to go into Eretz Yisrael. But for a specific reason, there was only one Pesach that was celebrated in the wilderness. People came, Yidden came to Moshe Rabbeinu and asked him. They started as follows. This was the first thing. This was their opening statement, as the Rebbe is going to point out. We are impure because of contact with a dead body. Since we weren't able to become ritually pure for the appointed time, for the 14th of Nisan, the way it was necessary according to halacha. So they continue. Since we were impure, lama nigara, why should we be missing out labilti hakriv as carbon Hashem, that we do not bring the offering of Hashem? Why should it be missing from us the possibility to bring the carbon shakal? That Hashem wants that the Jewish people should offer up in its appointed time amongst the Jewish people. This complaint brought about Moshe promised those people, ask Hashem, what should be the response? They have a good question. And Hashem told them, from now and on, not just as an exception this year, but for the rest of Jewish history, those that will be impure, they will not be able to offer the Carbon Pesach at its time. It was established for them the time of bringing the Carbon Pesach a month after Pesach, instead of the regular time. Instead, they were assigned Yud Daled Iyar, the 14th of Iyar, a month later, that they could bring a carbon Pesach in. Instead, V'zeu Hayom Shel Pesach Sheni, that was the day of Pesach Sheni. And the Rebbe concludes, from then on, from the year 2449 in the wilderness, when Hashem told us to Moshe Rabbeinu, we celebrate and mark the second Pesach every year on the 14th of Iyar, even in our days, even after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Now we cannot offer a carbon. So therefore, we would say, how does one mark it if there is no even possibility for a carbon? Still in all, we mark this. We do not recite tachlim prayers in this day. And in this way, this day is more celebratory, more yomtiv like Mishari Moisach Shana from other days of the year. Up till here, the Rebbe summarizes, is a short summary of the entire story. So the Rebbe says, what is the teaching and the lesson that we derive from this? When we think into the complaint that those Jews had, it's not understood how they presented it. The beginning of their complaint was they're impure. As a continuation or conclusion for this, was the they expressed their demand that they should also have an opportunity to offer a carbon Pesach. So the Rebbe says the order over here is out of order the way it should have been. At the time when the order of their complaint should have been the opposite. First, they should have emphasized the fact we're Jews. We have to bring a carbon Pesach. And therefore, we need to find some type of advice, some type of solution. Despite the fact that they are impure. Don't start off with what the problem is. Start off with what we need, and then explain how the problem happened. So the Rebbe explains in Isaiah, there's a very deep meaning, a very deep lesson. Carbon Pesach nivdol mikol shara karbonos. Carbon Pesach is unique and distinct from all other offerings. In the carbon Pesach, there is something that does not, that all the other karbonos do not have. There are three categories of karbonos, which carbon Pesach, the Rebbe is going to say, is its own category, the third category. Aleph, one category. Karbonos yachid, private karbonos. She'adam yachid makriv kasher mechuyev minav carbon. An individual offers this karbonos yachid when he's either obligated to bring those private karbonos or he decides to donate that carbon. So it's him as an individual. It has no connection with the community. There's a different category of karbonos. Karbonos tzibur, called communal offerings. Gemakrivim avur kol tzibur, that is offered in the Beis Hamikdash on behalf of the entire community, avur kol Yisrael yachad, for the whole Jewish people together. But karbonos elu kreivim Beis Hamikdash rachai de nitzigim shluchei tzibur. These karbonos are offered in the Beis Hamikdash not by every Yid. Not every Yid comes from the entire world to be there by the carbon Tamid every day, by the carbon Musaf and Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh and all other public karbonos. But rather they are representatives, emissaries of the community. They do it on behalf of all Jews. So you have the individual carbon, then you have community karbonos that are brought by representatives of the Then there's a third category, which carbon Pesach is the only one in that category. Gim. Zehu Ra carbon Pesach. The third carbon category is only a carbon Pesach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzivah Hashem commanded Kol Yehudi Chayiv Lahakriv Sa Pesach Boises Manu Bois Mokim Im Kol Bnei Yisrael B'Sech Bnei Yisrael. That every Jew is obligated to offer the Korban Pesach at the very same time in the very same place, together with all the Yidden. Amongst the Yidden, Koloima, the Korban Pesach Yeshnam Shnei Yom Gam Yachad. Korban Pesach has both points together, both the point of a private korban and a communal offering. Zeo korban yoch, it's a private individual korban. Kol Yehudim makriv a Pesach b'fnei. Every Jew offers the Pesach on his own. Obviously, it's not a whole animal. They're part of an animal, but every Yid has a part in the korban Pesach specifically that he offers up together with how many people they decide is going to offer the same animal. Bob Shaw, at the very same time that it's an individual, private type of korban, Gam korban sibur, it's a korban sibur, it's a communal offering. To call Yisrael makrivim korban zaboises man. All Yidden offer up this korban at the very same time. This was the complaint of the above mentioned Yidden to Moshe Rabbeinu. We are tummy because of contact with a body of a person, of a dead body. The first thing they introduced is the reason of our tumah is a very natural cycle of how Hashem established the world. When you're dealing with a people, with a nation that has millions of people, it's impossible that heaven forbid, it cannot be that from time to time someone shouldn't pass away by reaching the age of 120 years, according to Hashem, the amount of years that Hashem apportioned to him. Especially when we're talking about a large nation that was blessed by Hashem, that you should not be able to count the Jewish people out of how many Yidden there will be. And therefore, daily, new Jewish children are born. Harigam bilti of shari. So at the very same time that new Jewish children are born, it's impossible. There cannot be an event of a passing away of a Yid, heaven forbid, in the days of preparing for Pesach. Therefore, the complaint of the Yidden was there will have to be those people that in this day will have to do the Korban Pesach as its law is, and they will be impure because of contact with a dead body. They're both according to Torah, meaning as follows. Hashem made over here two opposite things to occur at once. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tziva Hashem commanded Shabiyadal ben Nisan that on the 14th of Nisan Chayiv Kol Yehudi Lahakriv Korban Pesach Ba'atzmi, every Yid is obligated to offer the Korban Pesach on his own. Lo Yadei Shliach, not through a Shliach. Not like the Korbanos Tzibur that are brought by a representative, and therefore my own status of being Tamei or Torah doesn't play a role in it. Therefore, since Hashem wanted me at the very same day, like every single Yid has this obligation, to bring a korban, the Korban Pesach, and to be able to accomplish that, that Yid needs to be, every Yid needs to be pure on that day. At the very same time that Hashem established in the Torah a halacha that there's one day of the year where every Yid has to be Torah. Because at the very time Hashem established the order of the world in such a way, every 14th of Nisan, it must be that some Yidden will find themselves, they will be obligated according to Torah, that Torah will obligate them to do such activities that will remove from them the possibility to be pure at this time. Therefore, they started off right away with this. This is the cycle of life. This is the way Hashem established the world. Since Hashem established the world this way, there must be a way to counteract it with and to make it fit in with the mitzvah that Hashem wants every year to bring a korban on the 14th of Nisan. So line 26, this was their complaint. We are impure to a human body. It's a matter that Hashem established in the order of the world in such a manner. That in this time must be such Jews that became impure from contact with a body. If so, why should we be lacking and missing? What is it our fault? That for this reason we should not be able to offer Hashem's korban Pesach to offer the korban Pesach that Hashem commanded. Once they established that logical, rational contradiction, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu hikir b'tzidkas tanasam. Hashem recognized the correctness of their complaint, the heishiv lahem, and Hashem responded to them. It's impossible to take away from them the mitzvah of the korban Pesach. By them presenting this question to Moshe Rabbeinu and through Moshe Rabbeinu to Hashem, Pesach Sheni, now is added another mitzvah in the number of 613 mitzvahs, and another Yom Tov was added by Yidden, Pesach Sheni. So now the Rebbe is going to conclude the lesson from this is, from here there's a deep lesson for each and every man and woman. Rabim Shoyalim, many asked the question. Michad Yis, on the one hand, you Am Kaddish, Hashem demands that the Jewish people should be a holy nation. What does it mean, a holy nation? That should be possible to recognize about them, that they are separated, they are acting differently than all the nations of the world. Shabbos, they are observing Shabbos, they eat kosher, they fulfill all the mitzvahs that they were commanded. On the other hand, Hashem placed them in such a situation. It's necessary for them to devote many hours to such matters. It removes from a man the possibility to study Torah in those hours because he's preoccupied with other things. And it's removed from the mothers the possibility to devote themselves at that time of all their other activities that they're involved in to educate, to the appropriate education of the children that Hashem benched them with. And they take away these occupations and these things that they need to do, takes away from the women that are not married, as the capability to use those hours that they could have used to make appropriate preparations for the fact that after their state of not being married, they should be able to establish a true home in amongst the Jewish people, a home built on the foundations of Torah mitzvahs, which is what a girl should be doing before marriage, preparing for her mission after marriage. And all these other activities that Hashem made it natural for a human being to have to be involved in, making a living, eating, drinking, sleeping, whatever, takes away from these seeming missions. So he says on the top of page Yudala, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tevem Yehudi, Hashem demands from a Yid to be Yosef ba'olam shebara Hashem, while existing in the world that Hashem created, Yisnaheg Tamid Lefi HaTorah Shalamaylo Ma'olam. He should constantly act in the manner of the Torah that is beyond and out of this world. So how can it be these two together. Like we said before, it's tarted asasre, it's contradictory. You're in the world, you have to engage with the world, you have to deal with the world, and be out of this world and transcend the world. This is the lesson from Hashem's response. Even if it seems to be mitzvahs to be in the world, and fulfill mitzvahs. It's something that is connected with great difficulty to be able to bridge those two worlds, the physical world and the spiritual world of Torah mitzvahs. Especially when we're talking about a mitzvah that occurs once a year, like the Korban Pesach. It was only supposed to be on the 14th of Nisan. No other date could be. And when they weren't able to fulfill this mitzvah that day, because of certain constraints and obstacles that's built into the world, like we said, it's a human thing, it's a normal thing that people pass away. We imagine that's it, it's over. One day, the world got in the way of that one day, the passing of a person got in the way of it. I lost that opportunity to bring the Korban Pesach. So the message is, Aleichem Ladas, you should know. If a Jew only wants truly fulfill Torah mitzvahs, and he's demanding, why should we miss out? Hashem will give him the capability, present him with the capability, that he should be able to fulfill all the mitzvahs. Gechol Yisrael, as all Jews do, without any deficiency, without missing out on anything. Even if it means creating a totally new thing. We created a Yom Tov now out of nowhere. Pesach Sheni, it wasn't in existence up till then. Hashem will still do this. For those singular Jews, for those few Jews that find themselves in such a situation, under any other circumstances, they are incapable of fulfilling the mitzvah. The Rebbe says, this is also a lesson for our days, like we said before. When sometimes it seems, according to all calculations, we cannot devote ourselves under any circumstances to the appropriate education of our children, or we think as unmarried girls that it's impossible to prepare appropriately for a Jewish family, or we think as men that we do not have the opportunity to study Torah in the appropriate and measure and the appropriate manner. All of this is contradictory to our existence in the world. So we should know, this is only the imagination, like a fantasy. All we need to do is to awaken within ourselves the deep resolution and the strong resolution. It's not possible. It's not right. I, any individual, man or woman, old or young, I will not be, heaven forbid, amongst other Jews while they're fulfilling the mitzvah of Hashem. When I make that decision and I make that resolution, so then Hashem responds. Then they will see that Hashem gives them the unique possibility to be able to do so. In the detailed story of Pesach Sheni, it's hinted another deep lesson, in addition to what we just now said, that if a person just resolves and says, I want to do the mitzvah despite the physical situation of the world, the natural cycle of the world, Hashem will help him do so. That's one lesson. And again, that has to do with the idea of Bitochon. We could rely on Hashem and be assured from Hashem that when we want to do mitzvahs, Hashem will help us. Another deep lesson that Rebbe says, line 18, there are those that ask a very simple question over here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yada Milchatchila, Hashem knew initially that there'll be those that would not be able to offer a Korban Pesach on the 14th of Nisan. Not just that he knew that it would be that way because of Hashem knows everything, but because, like we said before, it's the system in the world. Every single day, people pass away, so there will be people that will be tamei. So this is like part of the system in the world. So since Hashem knew that this would happen, why didn't he address it right away? Why do we have to wait until those Jews came and they asked Moshe the question? Moshe Rabbeinu had to respond. Sheni, he didn't know. And then he had to go ask Hashem. But only after this whole rigmarole and this whole process, Hashem commanded in his response to Moshe Rabbeinu about the second Pesach. I'm sorry. It could have been a different way. When Hashem said the mitzvah of Korban Pesach for everybody, the ordinary Korban Pesach, the 14th of Nisan, so he could have right away put in a rider, a qualifier, and said, Hashem could have right away taught at that time, as what occurs with those that are not tahor on the 14th of Nisan. And he could have right away said, when he said all the different halachas of Korban Pesach and the mat and the mother, etc., let him say right away, that those that will not be tahor, because again, it's a natural thing. It would have to happen. So he could have said that they'll be able to bring a Korban Pesach on the 14th of the year. So why did Hashem wait with it? Why didn't he right away say it when he taught all the halachas of Korban Pesach? The response to this question is also a response to another question that's a general question about our lives and our fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. Many people ask, since Hashem wants us to fulfill Torah mitzvahs, why sometimes does the Torah mitzvahs, does it involve great difficulty until there is even a possibility for the Yetzer Hara to question, how is it possible for you? How are you capable to be a religious Jew? Hashem created a world that makes a Jewish life difficult. Only after that a Jew finds through his devotion and self-sacrifice as the response to the question that he has the capability to fill the will of Hashem. In other words, why be challenged by a question and then need to search for the answer to the question? Let it go smoothly. Let it be obvious. Let it be evident. And this is the response of the story of Pesach Sheni. Calls man shel Yehudi lo yafriya ha'uvda she'ena yachol ha'hakim karban Pesach b'sech b'nei Yisrael. As long as it didn't bother a Jew, the fact that he would not be able to bring a Korban Pesach amongst Yidden, so he truly did not have the capability to do it. There was truly no out. There was truly, he would have lost the opportunity. Dafke Oz, only Kishis Oider Boy HaYehudi Shaboy, when the Jewish part of him awoke. He ran to Moshe Rabbeinu with a cry. How is it correct and appropriate that I will be separated and I will be removed from Klal Yisrael when they're bringing the carbon? That gufa, this fact that it touched the Jews so deeply, it affected a new response from heaven. Upasach avurei efsharis chadasha, and open for that person a new possibility. Yuchol is gaber al kashia olam, should be able to overcome the difficulties of the world. She is baruch b'chol inyan olam, should be blessed in all matters of the world. Ubiyachadim zeh yuchol amal erotzn Hashem, and along with this, you should be able to fulfill Hashem's will. V'zeu gam b'mayne b'negel lekashim v'nisyonos al Torah mitzvah b'chlal. This is also the response concerning what we said before, that a person asks, why is it that there are difficulties? Why are there challenges and tests for Torah mitzvahs? How come? Hashem wanted us to cry out and say, it bothers me. This is something that shouldn't be. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ratza, Hashem wanted Sheyihadus Torah mitzvahs, that Yiddishkeit and Torah mitzvahs, you Karim Eitzl Yehudi, should be precious by you. Val Yodam Gufa Livchain Ad Kam Torah mitzvahs Yikarim Metzlei. By that itself, by the challenges itself, that will be the test, that will be the litmus test, that will be the gauge to see how precious Torah mitzvahs is. By the Yid. Therefore, when the Jewish heart becomes all fakvetch, and he doesn't see the possibility of fulfilling Torah mitzvahs by the nature of the world, wherever he is located, he breaks out in a cry. I must fulfill what it says in Shulchan Aruch. When he cries out that way, Azai Meshana HaKadosh Baruch Hu Es Ha'olam, that Hashem changes the world. Umisader es kol atnoim svivoy, and he arranges all the conditions around him. B'chdei sheyuchol lias kechol Yisrael, so he should be able to be like all Jews. Kefi shebnei Yisrael hoyu b'chol hadoros hechol Moshe Rabbeinu, like all the Jews were in all the generations, beginning from Moshe Rabbeinu. Olahakiv carbon yachad and carbon Yisrael, to bring a carbon along with all the Jewish people. Just like through this carbon, that's what took us out in the first time around, from the enslavement, from the land of Mitzrayim. So too in every generation. So this self-sacrifice, this devotion that we have to Hashem, takes out as called echad v'achas miYisrael, every man and woman of the Jewish people, mishibud, from being enslaved, umematzavim shoyvim, and from different states that we need to be liberated from, hamizdamnim b'chayim, that occur in life. Now the Rebbe says that there's a similar story of another case where the Yidden came running, and this is unique to the women. Dugmas HaSipur, the Pesach Sheni, similar to the story of Pesach Sheni, we find an additional story in the Torah. After Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, when the Yidden had to leave and go from the wilderness into Eretz Yisrael, the daughters of Slavka, came and asked a halachic question by Moshe Rabbeinu. Is it in their can they receive the inheritance of how much should have been apportioned to their father in his lot in Eretz Yisrael? By expressing their complaint as follows. Also they wish to have a lot in Eretz Yisrael, Chelik Eretz Yisrael, a portion of Eretz Yisrael, to be able to ready over there their lives, and to act in the way that one has to act in Eretz Yisrael. Again was the same story. Moshe placed their judgment before Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the line, Hashem responded to him. The daughters of Slavchad are speaking well, are speaking correctly. They are correct in their complaint. And they should be given a part in Eretz Yisrael. Like our sages explain, this event showed the women of that generation had a greater desire than the men to fulfill Hashem's will to conquer Yisrael and to continue with the connection with Yisrael, lahar Hisham, and to indicate over there and to be an example of how one can live in the earth, in the land, in Eretz Yisrael, that runs in the natural way, not like the way they were in the wilderness. When they were in the wilderness, they were not engaging with the physical world. They didn't have to grow crops for food and so on. But they wanted to show that they could live in Eretz Yisrael, where everything is running by the laws of nature. Charshim, we plow, v'zorim, we sow, v'chulu. And despite being engaged with nature, this will be a holy land, that the eyes of Hashem your God is in it. It'll be a land that godliness is recognizable in it, from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. Also over there it occurred in the same manner. As long as the daughters of Slavchad did not come with any complaints, did not ask about it, Hashem did not give over the halachim concerning daughters inheriting in a situation where there are no male heirs, male sons. But when we're seeing that Jewish women are expressing their demand, they're demanding from Hashem to receive their portion in fulfilling Hashem's will. Live nice Chaim Yehudim, to build a Jewish life. Though it will be a life that's connected with plowing and sowing and toil. Then Hashem wrote for their sake a special parsha in the Torah, concerning the halachas of inheritance when it applies to women inheriting their father. Hashem concludes, Hashem should help that this gathering, this convention, that is concluding the first decade of the work of the Shiur Chabad, the Chabad women and girls, will be a good beginning for the following decade. In every one of you. And through you, you will be the instrument in the channel that every Jewish woman should have. The Akiru Miyad, they should immediately recognize. Like it was by the daughters of Slavchad. That they demand from Hashem that Hashem should give his brach and Hashem should bring down his success to run the world with a Jewish life. Despite the need to be connected with all the running of the world, the idea of plowing and sowing, and with women, they have to run a household. Not only were all their involvement with the world not disrupt and disturb, making from the world a holy world, through this activity, it will add to them more power and strength, lahat and passion, chayis v'oir, energy and light, ulakaim rotzna Hashem brius v'simcha, to fulfill the will of Hashem out of health and joy, la'erich yam v'shon tovis, for long days and long and good years. Like we spoke about earlier, from the fact that the kinus, this convention, is taking place on the Pesach Sheni. There's the lesson from this yomtiv. Despite the fact that we are existing in a world. If we are only hoping to Hashem, when we are requesting from Hashem, then He shows an open road, an open way, how to overcome all difficulties, and to act in the world the way a Jew is supposed to act. This would begin from the 11th year of Neshei B'nai Chabad B'Torch comfort, hamaka, and depth, v'chayis, m'chodosh, until avoida, and renewed energy of the work. V'ad sheniskin, until we merit, v'shiv techanu ha'navi, like the Navi promised us. V'lechas kulanu l'eretz ha'kdoisha, that all of us should go to the Holy Land. V'lahar yisham, ketzat tzadech lasis is eretz ha'kdoisha, and to show over there how we're supposed to make a land holy, live next to Beis HaMikdash, to build a Beis HaMikdash, v'lahakrim shama Pesach above Karban Pesach, and to offer over there in the upcoming Pesach, the Karban Pesach, the Simcha, to Levav and Simcha, and gladness of heart.